My friend Chris lives in Washington Heights, which is one of my favorite neighborhoods in the city. And I'm like, oh, let's go to Times Square. My friend who lives there is like, oh, why would you want to go to Times Square? And I'm like, just because I just miss the energy of the people in the city. And I was happy. Why I left LA. Looking at that decision, that was definitely a form of self-care. This is not in any way a diss to LA. If you look at like my going away party in this crazy city where like everyone says it's so superficial and everyone's so fake, and don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people like that there, but I was blessed to have real, genuine connections and relationships and friendships. I still encourage people to move there. There are so many opportunities, and the city really has a lot to offer. It does. It just wasn't for me. I grew up in Cleveland. Both my parents are from Jersey. So I spent my childhood Midwest and East Coast. So that's just more of the culture that I vibe with. Being away from family, not having the option to go see family sometimes is hard, because let's be honest, flights can be expensive and you know, LA is expensive. You miss out on everything, and I'm sure a lot of people who move away from family can really identify with me on this. Every family gathering, every family event, I would make a point to try to fly to my family and friends for what I could, to go to weddings, to, you know, I would make a point to try, but you can't always afford it, and you can't just be booking out like that with your agency to go visit your loved ones. You just can't. I first visited LA my senior year in college, and I remember being there and saying, you know, I don't really vibe with this city, but I like the opportunities it has in the industry. And there were several of my classmates who you know, it's not really for us, but the opportunities are for us, you know. I remember on that senior trip, this lady came in. She was like the VP of casting for ABC. She did a workshop with us, and then we were asking her questions, right? And one of the questions was, where do you think we should move? Where do you think we should move for the best opportunities? And she took a deep breath, and I remember it like it was yesterday. She took a deep breath and she said, honestly, you need to live wherever you're happy. That's where you need to move. Move where you're happy. I remember at the time, I was like, if this girl just don't tell us where we should live. And I think I didn't say girl, I think I said B-I-T-C-H. And as I started living in LA, her saying that would play back in my head. And after some time, I'm like, wow, I get it. So I remember it got to the point, I think it was around, I want to say around 2018, where I thought, you know, in a couple more years, I'll reassess where I am in LA and just how I'm doing, and I think I'm gonna move back east. A few months after that, my aunt passed away, and this aunt, one of my favorite aunts, she really meant a lot to me. And she lived in Jersey. The tickets were $800 round trip, and I couldn't swing it. And I thought about how many times I had been to Jersey since I was 18. It was really few and far between. When I lived in Chicago, I don't even think I need one hand to count the amount of times that I visited Jersey. I was in Chicago for 6.5 years. When I was living in LA, I didn't go at all. I started reflecting and thinking about all the time that I had missed with her. And I really started to think, like, is this worth it? Is it worth it? I still don't, I don't know. I don't know, but that set the plan in stone. And my original timeline was end of 2020, early 2021. I'm moving to New York. So this is still 2018. Come 2019, I'm like, wait, I'm gonna make this content. I was just focused on creating. And I think I even wrote in my goals for that year, don't have to pay nobody to do shit. Like, I was like, I'm about to become better at editing. I'm just about to become better at doing everything on my own, so I don't have to rely on anybody if anything falls through. So I'm creating, I'm doing sketches, I shot my own piece, X, Y, and Z. And two of my best friends from college, they were like, we should take a trip as friends together. We really don't see each other. We should go to New York. We should just have a trip. One of them lives in New York, my friend Chris, and I vlogged about this. So it was my friend Chris and Dwayne. We decided we need to all just be in New York and have fun together. And when I tell you, when I was in New York, I was so happy. I hadn't felt that in so long, and I felt like me. I felt like me. And I did not feel that in LA. And I never had. And I remember we are walking through this subway tunnel, and I wasn't walking, bro. I was skipping. I was skipping through the subway tunnel because I was just so happy. I was so, like, there's no other way to describe it. A weight was lifted off my shoulders. I was free. I was happy. I was content. It's like, okay. It's beyond definitely happening. This is a must. This is a necessity. And then it really hit me because in LA, I was doing so many rituals and being so intentional about doing things that made me happy or that I liked. I put a lot of energy into being in a good headspace. So it's one thing to go through periods of time where you're depressed and need to be intentional about certain things, but this was every single day. And I thought, as hard as my hustle is, my hustle could be so much harder if that energy I was using to get into a good space, if I could just put that into the craft too, you know? So, yeah. After that trip, I was still saying I was going to leave LA end of 2020, early 2021. When I got back from that trip, I was starting to have some issues with like my living arrangements and living space. And my grandma was very sick. My aunt passing away the year prior, along with the trip to New York, issues with my living space, then my grandma on the verge of death and in hospice, that solidified, no, this is going to be your last year in LA. So I left LA in November of 2019. But I swear, as soon as I made that decision that this was going to be my last couple months in LA, shit just started happening where it was like, dang, universe, are you trying to push me out of LA now? Like, so my car got broken into. Then my last week in LA, my catalytic converter, which I didn't even know what that was before that happened, my catalytic converter got stolen from my car. So my last week in LA, I didn't have a car. There were so many things in the universe, and at this point I'm like, okay, is this just some kind of test to see if I can push through? Or are you just telling me to get the out, you know? And let me tell you, God knew what he was doing, because with this pandemic, I am so glad that I got out of there. You know, if I was still in that same living situation, I would have been miserable because would have had quarantine there. I would have been in a city that crazy far from my family, that I ultimately wasn't happy in, and that would have prompted me to move anyway. But the difference is I would have had to move back to Cleveland and been with my parents this whole time. And okay, mom, dad, I love you to death, but after 2 weeks time, it's time to go. And I didn't know this, but like over the years, some of my family has been like plotting. Like they were plotting to try to get me to move back east. After I told my mom, of course, there were rumblings like, oh, Crystal's moving back, like closer to us. And I have like an aunt in Jersey. I'm gonna butcher her accent, but she is a passionate Jewish woman that in East Brunswick. She's like, well, you know, she always has a place to stay with me. She just can't bring the cat. So I could be on the East Coast and live rent free if I wanted to, but y'all know I can't give up Houston. Sometimes I go back and I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should have just moved from Chicago to New York. You wouldn't have to deal with some of the things you were going through in LA, X, Y, and Z. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. I was meant to be in LA for a reason and meet the people I did for a reason. And I'm really grateful for that time. I truly am. I have a couple more videos about some of the hardships and struggles and bumps I had to go over in LA that I think are important to talk about. Stay tuned. See y'all next time, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.